Good to have you back on Global Business Report. Back to our breaking story. These are the Consumer Price Index that measures the rate at which the prices of goods and services increase stood at 11.24% in September. Now, this is a 0.22 percentage point increase from the 11.02% recorded in August. We'll get you more details later on this. Now, Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele of Rice Millers Association of Nigeria and other stakeholders in the rice value chain not to increase the price of the product over border closure. Joining me this morning to discuss this development as well as activities at the Nigerian Stock Exchange is Robert Omotunde, Head Research at Afrinvest Securities Limited. Robert, it's good to have you with us and good morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to start with the September inflation. We just got that, 11.24%. And you know, what do you make of it? Bordering on the border closure as well.
I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, everybody knows that we're going to see the effect of this so-called border closure on the prices. You know, Nigeria's food, inflation is driven by 50.7% of food. You know, and most of those foods, I would say, you know, find their way through the land borders, which have been closed. You know, this was done, I think, late August. Yeah. You know, and that's why we are seeing the food. We didn't see the effect in the August inflation, you know, which closed at 11.02%. All right. We're seeing it now, 11.24%, and we may see a higher uptick. You know, especially when the government has decided not to purge in terms of reopening the borders. All right. And I think the issues are that Nigeria's GDP, you know, economy is largely driven by, you know, food, which is why, so I mean by consumption, you know, of which food is a very important aspect of it. Right. So when you analyze GDP, for example, by consumption expenditure, you know, you see 70% as household consumption. And of that 70%, about 60% of that 70% of household consumption is food, you know, which is why inflation will, as much as possible, try to mirror what the domestic price levels reflect. All right. You know, and that's why whenever you see changes in prices of food, you know, it tends to feed into inflation. You know, these have consequences on growth, you know, because this will also mean that for as long as the consumer wallet is not improved, you know, minimum wage has been signed. Yeah. You know, we don't know when it will be implemented. Right. But even when it is implemented, that's only for the public sector. So if the consumer income remains at the same level, and then you're seeing uptick in prices, the natural thing is volume will drop. When volume drops, then you see it in your growth numbers. You know, so it's not. We are not living in good times. I would say in terms of policy. All right. Rolled out. Yeah.
Very good, Robert. You know, you've already mentioned inflation regarding the border closure, and let's take a look at the latest statements credited to Nigerian Customs Service and the CBN governor. What are your thoughts there, you know, on all these policies?
Sad in the sense that we should, before we come up with policies, I believe we should think through the implication of the policies that we make. I mean, it is irresponsible of any government to put up a policy only to now find out the implication of that policy and then go back. Right. I mean, the natural thing to do is to look at your macroeconomic models. What drives Nigeria's economy? What drives Nigeria's inflation? You know, what drives, you know, different macro variables? Which aspect of businesses are people mostly involved? Look at Nigeria's GDP breakdown. When you analyzed by, you know, after taking out agric, you know, and manufacturing, trade services, you know, are a very important component of our GDP. And most of these services, you know, they occur by, you know, trading, generally, commerce, right? And most of these commercial activities, you know, are tied to, you know, some of the items which have been banned. So naturally, you would expect that the impact will be higher price levels. Again, it's the simple law of demand and supply. When the supply is constrained, what you'd expect is that with the same level of demand, prices will go up. It is natural. This is not something that an appeal can do. Sellers or traders will sell what they buy. Indeed. You know, unfortunately, when the border is closed and those goods, one way or the other, are still being smuggled into the country, the prices will go up. You know, it's not something that an appeal can do, and I don't think I'm trying to watch my word, but again, it's not. It's funny to say that you are appealing to traders, you know, because again, they will sell what they buy from the market. You know, it's not something that an appeal would do. If we want prices to moderate, we need to analyze the bulk of the consumption. And I think some agricultural commodities are being favored by government. Rice, for example. Let's not deceive ourselves. We do not produce enough rice we can consume as a country. We're 200 million people.
Very good.
Right? So we don't produce enough. So why do you shut the border when the demand, when the so-called supply is not enough? It's natural. The other thing you'll see is higher prices. And there's something you can do about it. You can appeal from now till the kingdom come. If those borders remain shut and we don't have alternative domestically, then you see higher prices.
Very good, Robert. Now, you've touched on the issue of the consumer perspective regarding this border closure saga. But let's look at other impacts now. The issue of unemployment. How is this impacting on that sector?
Again, because all are intertwined, like they're all linked, right? So now, those who are gainfully employed, you know, whether they are self-employed or they have some form of companies they work with that are involved in trade services along the food value chain are definitely going to be affected. If this remains for the next 6 months, people will begin to get out of jobs because, again, unemployment is already high. We can't bring more upon ourselves, you know. And to the extent that, you know, we live in a world of competitiveness, I do not think that it is optimal for any government to run on a restrictive trade policies. It doesn't help at the end of the day. What you can do is to improve and enhance your own domestic competitiveness. There is an irony. We signed AFTA, and then we closed the border. It's ironical because by June or July of 2020, we expected that this should come into fusion. So, and then you have the borders shut. That means the agencies of government are working across purposes. In fact, the closure of border is an embarrassment to the president who went to sign the AFTA. When we signed the AFTA and then we came back and said, oh, borders remain shut on our neighbor. I mean,
although there was some initial anxiety over the signing itself, which took a while. Now, briefly, Robert, just briefly, we saw some positive gains towards the stock market just yesterday. So what's your outlook for the rest of the week?
Well, we think that the equities market will continue the usual lackluster performance. What we've seen recently, we've seen the equities market going further, you know, deeper into the negative territory, right? 15.7% year-to-date loss, you know, that the equities market has suffered. And we only saw a marginal gain yesterday, you know, on the back of investors who are trying to take new opportunities. Sadly, we are among the worst performing equities market, not just in Africa, in frontier and emerging markets, and all tied to our fiscal issues. So the earlier we get our acts together in terms of our policy communications, the better for the equities market.
All right. On that note, Robert Omotunde, many thanks for your thoughts on those issues. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Good to have you.